Full story, a life redeemed. He was once called the hatchet man of the White House, a brilliant, ruthless political operator who wielded power with precision and fear. Charles Wendell Colson, known to the world as Chuck Colson, rose quickly through the ranks of American politics. By his early 40s, he was special counsel to President Richard Nixon, a man trusted with secrets, strategy, and silence. But behind the sharp suits and steely gaze was a soul unraveling. In 1972, the Watergate scandal erupted, a political earthquake that shook the foundations of American democracy. Colson, deeply entangled in the cover-up, was indicted and eventually pled guilty to obstruction of justice. He was sentenced to 7 months in federal prison. The headline screamed disgrace. The man who once walked the corridors of power now sat behind bars. And yet, it was in that prison cell that Chuck Colson met grace. Before his sentencing, a friend handed him a copy of Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. The words pierced through his pride, his guilt, and his fear. Colson fell to his knees and surrendered his life to Christ. Many thought it was a ploy, a desperate attempt to soften his image. But time would prove otherwise. In prison, Colson began to see the world differently. He saw men discarded by society, broken by addiction, violence, and hopelessness. He saw himself in their stories, and he remembered the words of Jesus. I was in prison, and you visited me. Matthew 25, verse 36. When he was released, Colson didn't return to politics. He returned to the prison gates, not as a lawyer, but as a servant. In 1976, he founded Prison Fellowship, a ministry dedicated to bringing the gospel to inmates, advocating for justice reform, and restoring dignity to the incarcerated. What began as a promise to God became the largest Christian nonprofit for prisoners and their families in the U.S. Colson's impact rippled far beyond prison walls. He wrote over 30 books, including his memoir Born Again, which became a bestseller and a beacon of hope for those seeking redemption. He launched Breakpoint, a daily radio commentary on faith and culture. He received the Templeton Prize for Progress in Religion in 1993, a $1 million award he donated entirely to ministry. He became a voice of conscience in a noisy world. A man who once manipulated power now preached humility. A man who once silenced truth now proclaimed it boldly. Chuck Colson passed away in 2012 at the age of 80. But his legacy lives on, in the thousands of lives transformed by Prison Fellowship, in the churches mobilized to serve the forgotten, and in the testimony that no one is beyond the reach of grace. Closing reflection. God didn't waste Chuck's prison sentence. He used it to birth a movement. And through one man's fall, millions found freedom. Would you like me to build the full episode script, thumbnail concepts, or SEO description next? This story is ripe for impact, and I'd love to help you bring it to life visually and spiritually. Chuck Colson, from Watergate to prison ministry. Chuck Colson was once known as President Nixon's hatchet man, deeply involved in the Watergate scandal. After being sentenced to prison, he experienced a radical spiritual transformation and founded Prison Fellowship, one of the world's largest outreach ministries for inmates and their families. He was one of the most feared men in Washington, until prison broke him and faith rebuilt him. Colson's role in Watergate: arrest and conviction, public disgrace and isolation. A friend gives him Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. Colson surrenders to Christ before entering prison, begins studying Scripture and praying daily, founds Prison Fellowship, advocates for justice reform, rehabilitation, and restoration, touches millions of lives across the globe. Like Saul on the road to Damascus, Chuck Colson was blinded by power until God gave him new vision, books, speeches, and global influence. His story proves no one is too far gone for grace. Closing reflection. God didn't waste Chuck's prison sentence. He used it to birth a movement. And through one man's fall, millions found freedom. Would you like me to build the full episode script, thumbnail concepts, or SEO description next? This story is ripe for impact, and I'd love to help you bring it to life visually and spiritually. God didn't waste Chuck's prison sentence. He used it to birth a movement. And through one man's fall, millions found freedom.